The RX-8 that sits behind me is the last true sports car made by Mazda. And the example that I'm going to drive today is actually pretty special because it's a special edition. The 40th anniversary special edition, that is. Let me show you around it and then I'm going to take the car for a drive. So as I said, this is the 40th anniversary model, which got some unique wheels that this car doesn't have. The owner has replaced them with lightweight OZs, shod in quite aggressive tires, and they are 18-inch rims. Moving around to the front, so this is an SE1, the first version of the RX-8. So this is not the facelifted model, although the wheels that were fitted to this car did come on the later SE2 models. One of the unique traits of the 40th anniversary edition is the fact that it has factory-fitted Bilstein sport suspension, which makes an already amazingly agile and fun car to drive even more agile and fun to drive and forgiving on the limit. This car's owner, Florin, who I deeply thank for allowing me to go for a drive in this, told me that this is the car he derives the most enjoyment out of driving. And he owns an M3 and an S2000 as well. But this is his pride and joy, and after driving it for a bit, I can totally see what he's on about. I'm pretty sure this car, or the rotary engine that lies under its bonnet, are the reasons why he is such a Mazda enthusiast. So the car does have a few mods. The exhaust has been tweaked, let's say. It has high flow cats from Miltech, which enhance the noise. The owner said he had an even freer flowing exhaust before this, but it was a bit too noisy and the flames kind of got on his nerves after a while. He also has a lot of carbon that he wants to put on the car, but so far only the trunk lid has been replaced. I really like this car. It looks really good. I remember these used to be a lot more common, like around 2010, 2011. But nowadays, you don't really see that many. As you probably know, these are notorious for being unreliable, although it's only as unreliable as you are not able to provide it the right maintenance. Or that's what someone who really loves these cars would tell you. Let's pop the hood. I'll show you the engine. So the engine is stock as far as I'm aware, except for the cold air intake. So this is the first version of this engine fitted to the RX-8. It doesn't make all that much power, 230-ish, and you need to rev the nuts off it to access the power. It has really no torque lowdown at all. Although I'm sure this air intake does help it a bit, as it can draw more air in at low RPMs. Like other engines that Mazda put in the RX-8, this one is a twin rotor. You can't really see it. If you don't know about Wankel engines and what sets them apart from regular piston engines, well, you should do a bit of reading, because the purpose of my video is not to explain the inner workings of the Wankel, but rather to enjoy it, because I don't have that much time with the car. But it's a really unique engine, and its main traits are you need to rev it really high to access all the power. It doesn't really have that much torque. It is extremely smooth and extremely eager to rev all the way to its red line. And even though this engine's standard rubber bushings or mounting points have been replaced with upgraded polyurethane ones, which are supposed to be more rigid, to me, this is a ridiculously smooth engine, especially considering I drive a 4-cylinder diesel. Another thing I would like to point out, which I think in my mind marks the RX-8 as a real sports car, is the fact that its engine, which is very small and light, another trait that I forgot to mention, but it is also pushed really, really far back. And if you look, here's the center point of the wheel, and if I raise my hand like this, you see the strut brace, and then the engine is completely behind the strut brace. That's pretty awesome. And it gives this car very, very predictable handling, since all of the mass is concentrated towards the center of the vehicle. This does go some ways towards explaining why this car is so chuckable and enjoyable to drive, and to drive quickly. Another thing you may not know about the RX-8 if you're not into these cars is the fact that it's actually a sedan with suicide rear doors. So it's a much more practical car than you might initially think. But even with me, a tall driver, I'm 183 centimeters tall, a shorter occupant would fit behind myself, and if you push the front passenger seat forward, a full-sized adult can sit behind. I think this car has aged really well. It looks really, really nice. When it was launched, people commented on the rear lights that they were a bit too busy and a bit too cliché Japanese looking, but frankly, I think the car has aged really well. It has these protruding fender flares that look amazing, and this is an instantly recognizable design feature. I'm not sure if it harkens back to a specific model in Mazda's history, or if it's just copied from a British sports car of the 1960s in true Japanese style, but it's a really cool design element. I think it really sets the RX-8 apart. As you can see, quite a complex shape. I imagine it's a pain. It was a pain to stamp these. This is what the car looks like on the inside. It has a really short shifter, a very nice and sporty steering wheel, lovely sport seats with a perforated Alcantara center. This car also has plenty of Wankel motifs. For instance, this part of the headrest is meant to resemble the Wankel rotor. Another trait of the anniversary edition is the fact that it's really well equipped, including with fully electric seats, a Bose sound system. I really love this short and stubby little shifter, which is a factory short shifter. It works really well, it's quite precise. I also like this unusual handbrake lever. Quite cool, I would say. The driving position is pretty good, I would say, especially with these electrically adjustable seats. But now I've found a really good driving position, and it's given me the confidence to really push this car into a few bends on this amazing road that I've shot a few other videos on. Oh man, I'm so excited. So smooth. It just fires into life. No vibration, no nothing. What a remarkable engine. The car is already warm because I have driven it. I'm gonna try to talk, but it might be difficult. And that's not even close to the red line. Not even that was close to the red line. Let me try to dissect this driving experience. I'm even gonna slot it into third. First things first, the fact that you have a rev counter that goes all the way to 10K and you can use most of it is already, something that would get an enthusiast really excited. With the modified exhaust, even if I slot it into fifth, the car still drones a bit. The owner says he's aware of it, and it's a compromise he had to make. He said he's not especially happy with the Miltic high-flow cats, specifically because of the droning. But when you're on it and when you're pushing the car, when you're throwing it around and using all the revs, it's perfect. That was 9K. There's a buzzer which sounds at 9,000 RPM, announcing that you should probably consider changing gears, although you can still rev it more than that. This is a really great way to spend a Saturday morning. Really wakes you up. The fact that this engine really has minimal levels of torque at anything lower than 5,000 RPM, it just begs you to rev it. Another thing I can't not notice is the throttle response. You forget how responsive naturally aspirated engines are when you only drive modern turbo units. So the driving experience is really good. It's very sports car-esque. You don't feel quite as cramped as in an MX-5. And I actually drove the Toyota GR Supra not that long ago, and that actually feels tighter inside. This is also a four-seater, by the way, so that's also something. Visibility is also surprisingly good, much better than in the Supra, which I had to get used to. I also need to give a shout out to the steering, which is also really good. I read that this 40th anniversary edition model got some sort of strengthening beam to improve steering feel. And the steering really feels very nice and precise. I like the steering in older sporty cars because it's not so pin sharp and darty. It feels more progressive. And if you want the car to turn, you just apply a bit more lock. It is an old school way of doing things in an era when all the sporty cars have the most pin sharp steering and progressive steering racks, so that you have to apply less lock. I don't know what people have against lock, or engineers have against lock, but there is a sweet spot at one point between having enough lock and sharpness. And I think that balance has been lost in newer cars. And older sports cars like this RX-8 do a much better job. It's also a confidence-inspiring steering rack. It just wants me to push the car into corners, which you can. You can light the rears very easily when setting off. machine. It would need a bit more torque to throw the tail out in corners like I tried there on corner exit. But it's still amazingly fun. For people of all talent levels, I would add. This car's owner pointed out that you feel the rear is about to let go when the front goes light and it starts to understeer. And I just experienced it there, and it's such an intuitive way for a car to behave. Now I'm starting to get a feel for it. Driving this around here fast is harder than driving the M3 around here. This car's tail is so controllable also because it has a limited slip differential, which for any sports car or any sporty car is a must-have. It really allows you to control the rear when it does break loose. And even though I started this video by saying that the engine dominates the experience, that's only if you don't have an amazing road such as the one that I'm driving on today to test the car out. Because if you do, and you throw it into a few corners, you won't know whether the engine is the star of the show or if it's the handling. I remember Jeremy Clarkson in his review from 15 years ago of the RX-8 that he said this is the easiest car to drive fast. I didn't really think much of it until today. I didn't even think about it. I was reminded of it just as I was about to meet this car's owner, Florin, to drive the car. I remember that he said that, and then when I met Florin, he also suggested that yes, that is indeed true, and the car is very, very easy to drive quickly. I wasn't expecting this. This is quite a light car, and it feels light on its feet. And with the lightweight OZ wheels, which have lower unsprung weight and thus improve the handling, it's even sharper and more precise than stock. I didn't think I was going to covet one of these, even after driving it, but I have to say that I'm completely sold. I want an RX-8. I don't want to ruin these bikers' day. Maybe they're into cars and they're gonna enjoy the exhaust note. In that case, have some of it. The first thing I'm gonna do when I get back home is see how much one of these is. And if I do get an RX-8 at some point, I'm not gonna modify it heavily. I don't think it needs it. This car doesn't need to be fast. Its point is not to push you into your seat, because it doesn't really do that, even with 230-ish horsepower and this instant throttle response. And the fact that you have to heel and toe to make the most of it. I think that pretty much sums things up. I think the car speaks for itself. I will let it do some more talking, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.